Okay, good luck with the slow descent into madness.
If you can keep up and you don't mind dying, come along.
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
You know what? There's something just extremely uncomfortable about a man your size sniffing a flower.
We're gonna need a new plan.
I'll give you anything you ask for. As long as it's not something I don't want to give.
Get off my bridge.
It's the Al Travis Show. We absolutely love having our next guest on. He is Senator Aric Putnam. Senator, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you this week?
I'm good. It's this week. Last week was a little dry, to be quite honest. You kind of get used in 2025 Minnesota that some scandal will be going on every day, so it makes this job easy. Last week was a little thin, to be quite honest. We had one that kind of got me going. That was this idea that Minnesota gave out like $20 million in nonprofits that, oh, by the way, weren't even listed in the state as nonprofits. I lived a week on that. I'm all right. I could live. But this week, things seem to be picking up. And I like that. I like that a lot. Here, if we may. So the other day, Monday, it must have been Monday, the story came out about Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon. I know Steve Simon. I say that. I had him on my Between Lines show years ago. He can come on here show anytime, and I hope he does. Anyway, he was out. He's hoping for a bill, a U.S. bill, some guy from California, right, and Ohio. Anyway, it's called the Voter Purge Protection Act. Okay, so we look it up. Basically, he says he doesn't want people being able to be removed unless there's reliable evidence they died or moved to another state. Now, you know I'm not a smart man. You know that to be true. And I thought to myself, we've been in the country 250 years. We don't have a rule on how we figure people died, and this is what got me, Senator. I'll share it. So my dad dies like 4 months ago, right? And we go through the thing, and the state of Minnesota gives us a death certificate. Said he's dead. And then you actually have to decide, and this is the crazy part about all that, by the way, when you go through this, how many real ones do you want from the state? Because those are like $10 a pop, and some like banks some will only take the real one, and others will take copies, and you got to kind of do the math so you have enough proof that he's not around. And the state does this, and I thought to myself, well, if the state created it, don't they then, once they create one, whoop it over to the Simon computer and say, oh, by the way, send another one out. This guy no longer is with us. Take him off the rolls. But evidently, that's not necessarily how it works. Is that not how you imagine it worked? I guess I never thought I should let Steve Simon know my dad passed. We're not that tight. I didn't expect him to be at the funeral. You know what I'm saying? I think we're asking a lot of people if that isn't an automated system by now.
You know, that I hadn't thought about it much either, and I didn't know about this bill. But I can't say it sounds a little bit like left hand not talking to the right hand, which is kind of what government does just in general. Like that's just kind of how it works sometimes. But this idea is fascinating to me. You know, there are like 10 times as many dead people on Facebook as there are alive because there's no way to get rid of their accounts.
I absolutely know that now because of the death. Like, so how do you turn that off? And then you don't generally want to just turn it off if you have your deceased, super secret password, then all those photos are still there and you might be able to pull one off. So I get that. But there should be some way of just saying, let's slide that over in the we no longer exist pile, but the relatives can go look at it. I did actually know that.
Isn't that wild?
It's crazy. Then the other part of that, and this is where I'm not for, to be honest, not for the federal government getting any more involved in election. That's not my thing. But on the second part of that, we have to have reliable evidence that you moved to another state. I don't know how often you've ever moved, Putnam, but the last thing I do is, besides getting the U-Haul and bumming all my friends to come lift my furniture and then find somebody on the other end to unload the furniture and put it in. Let's just say I was moving to Iowa. The last thing I'm going to think is, I should let Steve know. I should, I haven't. No one's going to do that. You're going to move.
He's a nice guy, though, actually. Just give him a call. Super nice guy.
And I don't doubt. I'm just saying. I thought these things were taking. Here's what I thought happened, and I'm again not as smart.
Nothing else to do. He's just sitting by his phone. So just give him a holler.
Hey, text from Al. He's moving to Iowa. Okay. See, again, I don't know why I don't think of this stuff until this stuff pops up, but it drives me crazy. I thought what happened was Al moves to Iowa. He's got whatever 30, 60 days. They all got some to get your license, right? That now this is where I live, and I thought you did that, and then Iowa. okay, we got Al now, and they'd send an email and the computer would link up and say, Al's now an Iowan. I just thought that happened. Evidently it doesn't, and they need legit proof I moved. Why are we making this hard?
I think there's a couple things going on. One, and I think you and I have talked about this before, is when we talk about election security, we need to recall that there are multiple steps in the process where things can go south. So registration is one issue, the act of voting is another, and then the act of counting. Those are three totally different points when elections can be insecure. And I could, if Perry Como's not still alive, is he?
I doubt. If he is, he's not listening. No, I don't think
Sammy Davis Jr.
There you go.
Sammy Davis Jr. had been registered in Minnesota, and I showed up to vote and said, "Yeah, I'm Sammy Davis Jr." And someone's like, "Oh, yeah, he's been dead for a long time," or didn't know that. It wouldn't matter because I would still need to somehow justify that that's who I was.
Yeah.
So, again, like to me, it's not that huge of a thing. And so, what it sounds like he's trying to do is to make sure that people aren't arbitrarily purged or taken off unfairly.
But how, if Steve Simon's the guy, the key master with those, how would anyone arbitrarily take them off? I mean, I sent a letter saying, hey, my buddy Bob moved to Iowa and he didn't, and just kind of screw with Bob. I mean, is that what we're worried about? Is that what people are doing? I don't have any idea. But this is where it comes from. And this is me. If there's nothing to hide, don't hide it. I think transparency is a good thing. So when the federal government asked everybody to send in their voter rolls, and Minnesota and others did too, said, no, thank you, we're not doing that. Simon says we got squeaky clean voter rolls. We got the best voter rolls ever. These are the greatest. They're hugely great. Well, then share them. And what I mean by that is if they are that good, then maybe the Alabamas that have crappy voter rolls will say, well, how does Minnesota do it? Oh, these are, what are we, 50 incubators that try to figure crap out, and you take the best of the best, and we get better that way. But by saying no, thank you, it seems we're hiding something. And then this gets good. This gets good because it happened this morning just before you came on. They did the fraud unit thing committee. You guys work when you're not working? They had one yesterday. It was on TV. Did you see it?
No.
That Kristen Robbins gal, she's the head of the fraud thingy, and some others were talking to Simon and the rest of these guys about voter fraud. So catches Al's attention, okay? Because I was just trying to talk about this yesterday morning. According to the fraud group that came up and they were discussing it, Minnesota Steve Simon was talking about it, 500 to 600 fraudulent voter registration applications were submitted to, 13 Minnesota counties that we know of last year because of these couple of people that evidently were, one of them, this got weird to me, one was with an organization that paid for these people to go do that only gets paid through the Minnesota. Their only income is like, we send them checks as a nonprofit. It's a whole, you have to get it in the paper to get all the, but my point being is, so this isn't a small thing. If 500 or 600, somebody put 500, now they didn't all, you can't tell if they all voted because they just registered people to vote. We don't know what that did to the election. We still don't. But if someone's trying to do that for a reason, it just can't be fun to fill out voter registration cards 500-600 times. This isn't for, giggles. And then the other thing that gets me is when they talk the process, and this is where I would like you and I to fix this. The process is if I go in and I say I am. Who did you say?
Sammy Davis Jr. That wasn't a very good joke, so you don't have to keep going back to it.
No, I like it because let's say I say I'm Sammy Davis Jr., but the person behind the counter says, I don't think you're Sammy Davis. And I try a little soft shoe, maybe a little singing. It doesn't convince them.
I can see you guys getting confused for each other all the time.
As a child, I tell you. But I say, oh, no, I am, and I'm willing to sign my name and say I am. I get the vote. They put a flag on it, but the vote goes into the pile of all votes. They will check me out, and maybe I go to jail for not being Sammy Davis Jr. after, but the votes go into the major pile of them, and there's no way of telling which one is the one I voted for not. This seems to me to be where things go wrong. If person says, Al, you're not Sammy, although you sing well, by the way, you're not Sammy, but I say I'm willing to sign it, and I sign it, that vote should go in this pile that we're going to check out. And when we check out, we can slide in the big pile if he is Sammy. But if not, the idea that we put all of them together before we decide if they're good or not seems like there could be problems in the pudding. Does that make sense? Did I describe that right?
No, it does, but the whole provisional ballot concept could get south too. Like with everything that we're doing, it could go bad. So you could have the pile of provisional ballots separate, and those could somehow disappear, or other things can happen. I mean, and I think one thing that we probably agree on at the core is that when you're talking about 500 things, 500 voter registrations being bad news, I think probably 99% of them are people just screwing up. People screw up a lot more than they are devious. Because
Yeah.
remember, we are shaved monkeys who throw poop at each other. That's the nature of the human experience. And people make mistakes a lot more often than they're sneaky. And if you think about the number of times people have been caught saying, I am Sammy Davis Jr. to vote, I think it's once in the last 10 years, maybe twice, when people have actually tried to commit voter fraud at the ballot itself. And I think it was one guy in Sartell, actually, in my neighborhood, in the last 10 years.
It was northern. Was somebody in northern Minnesota last time voted because she really knew her mom wanted to vote Trump or not Trump? I don't remember what. So she voted for her mom. It's like, really, seriously. But this is a little different. That's why check it out. It is going to be in the paper today. 2 people have already pled guilty to federal court of being paid to register 500 to 600 fraudulent votes. So this isn't your I filled it out wrong. These are 2 guys that filled out 500 of them. And my point being is, you didn't do it for funsies. There has to be a bad reason why. Now, I don't know if it ever got through the rest of it. Simon will have to tell, I don't know how you tell. I'm just saying that there's no reason not to look under this hood if we have no reason not to look under the hood. So let's take a gander. That's all I'm saying. Hey, we got to go to break. That wasn't even something I was going to talk about until 2 minutes before you showed up. I've got him, Senator Aric Putnam on the Al Travis Show.
If it's your turn to host a game, Grandpa's Barbecue suggests you try something different. Put out the perfect barbecue flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. Add it to your ribs, dip the meatballs, or drench your wings in the original flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. It isn't too hot or spicy, fruity or smoky or whatever. Grandpa's Barbecue. Available in select stores and online at grandpasbarbecueshop.com.
You know that car sound that sounds like a cricket playing a banjo? Jay's can fix that. You know when you step on the brakes and your car sounds like a pair of tennis shoes in the dryer? Paul is the guy who specializes in that. And you know that sound that never happens when the mechanic's around? Paul took a whole course on that. If you own a car, you need to know Paul. Paul owns Jay's Auto Shop, 202 North Main Street, Blue Earth, 525-1052, 525-1052.
Are you kidding me?
You know that comment you said to the radio? The thing that we got wrong?
Clearly, Brussels sprouts are the worst vegetable.
Call us and let the world know your thoughts. 855-257-7469. That's 855-ALS Show.
Lucky to have him. We've got him, Senator Aric Putnam, on talking with us. So this is what I want to chat with you about, because I need you to explain it to me like I'm a third grader. I don't want to put you in a bad spot. I know Senator Fatah, he was on your side. He's now going for the mayor's race in Minneapolis. So this isn't about him specifically. But yesterday, he and a couple other the guys that are running against Jacob Fry got together, and they were discussing how people should vote in the ranked choice voting system, and basically came down to anybody but Fry. The three others are ganging up on him and saying, as long as it's not him, we don't care, but here's how you do that. And this is what I don't understand, really. Fry doesn't come out with anybody on the, if you don't vote for me, vote second or third this way. Because as I understand it, if your number one doesn't win, then your number two gets thrown a bone, and that's how they kind of add it up until somebody wins, 51%. Am I discussing, how does that work? That three guys are all looking for the same job are saying, well, as long as not him, we can win this thing, put us 1, 2, 3. It doesn't seem like America's voting system that I grew up with. I don't understand how it works.
Yeah, so it's ranked choice voting, which I think in principle is a pretty cool idea when applied in the right places. I think it's perfect for school boards and city councils when you have multiple seats that you're hiring for. I think ranked choice voting makes a ton of sense. I think it's a little bit weirder in this case when you're just electing one person. But if you've got, like 7 candidates running for 4 seats, it's a great way of doing it, because then you kind of get rid of the ideological extremes. Everyone has to work together a little bit better. More people run. It's awesome in that context. And this one's a little bit weird, but I will also add that Omar's a pal of mine and all, but he's a very conservative, traditional politician. He's very I know that sounds weird because he calls himself a socialist, but the way he does politics is very old school, very conservative. I don't mean in terms of ideology. I mean he's typical kind of politician guy, sort of win at any cost kind of dude. And so that's, I think, probably what's going on with this ranking move.
But where do you stand on rate? Okay, if you're local elections, I kind of get your point with 7 people running for 3 seats or whatever. I can see how that eliminates. But in this case, and again, I vote. I don't know any of this guy. I'll vote for Fatah. I vote for Fatah, but he doesn't get to that threshold of winning because the other 2 guys, Hampton and Davis, all pull from the same crowd, and they don't get to the number. So since my guy didn't get there, my second choice, Davis, gets my vote now. And now, how does that not seem like Al got more than 1 vote when whoever voted for Fry and he was at the top of his only got 1 vote? If I pick the right guy, then I only get 1 vote. If I pick the wrong guy, I get a second shot at it. I don't get the concept.
I'm not sure I totally follow where you're going with this.
Well, if I don't pick the right guy, I pick the crazy right wing guy, and he doesn't get it. He's the bottom of the ballot. Now my second choice votes gets taken because he's off. He doesn't win. He didn't get there. So now I just voted twice. I voted for the guy, and then my second choice is, and that gets counted, and maybe that pushes my guy over the top to win.
But if one guy wins outright, then it's all done. So you're saying if we have 4 candidates and one of them gets 51% on the first ballot, those other second, third, they don't count at all.
No.
So you're suggesting that those who voted for the guy who won had more voting power than those who voted for the other 3?
Yeah. Because you had a second or third shot at it. Yeah, and I'm like, that just seems strange to me when 3 people all running for the same seat get together and say, if you put it down right on the card, we'll guarantee that guy's out.
Yeah.
That's the strangest bumper sticker ever in the history of voting. It dumbfounds me.
The fact that they're doing it together is kind of weird. I don't understand why the other 2 are joining Omar in this, because it's kind of his path to winning. But it's, I don't know. It's kind of people taking advantage of the system, which is not my favorite thing in the first place. But I will say that partially because it is a little bit confusing sometimes. That's why it works so well at city council level.
See, and that's why I appreciate you talking to me. I don't think you figured this out for me here, but the city council thing makes perfect sense. When there's multiple people, every seat, I think I could live with that. This is different because it feels ishy, and I don't like when I feel ishy.
I think Maine elects its governor through ranked choice voting.
There's
like
a half a dozen. Yes, and
right?
yes, and there's places in California the same way, and it's just like I got to understand it before I'm going to like it. I'm out of time. I thank you for taking the time to be here, my friend. Really do.
Any and every time, dude. See you next
All
week.
right. He's Senator Aric Putnam on the Al Travis Show.
Braver Angels, Minnesota is part of a national